against an entire army. What can you do on your own?
I told you. It's enough.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Backlog Banter. I'm your boy Abram, joined as usual by my Game Pass loving co-host Tucker Hazel, and we are here today to review Xbox's 2021. But before we do, if you want to share your thoughts about Xbox or anything else at all, be sure to join our Discord link as usual, top of the description really down there. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell, and leave a comment. But this is a very particular type of comment.
Okay, all right.
Because Tucker made a threat and I'm gonna make good on it. What platform should I play Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga on next year? Because it's become a point of consternation in my life. I got all three options. I don't know where to go, so let me know. But before you move on to that much more important task, take a second to chat with us about Xbox. And Tucker, before we get into our thoughts, I feel like we should lay the foundation, if you will.
All right. I think that's that's another term for taking a shit. Let's lay the foundation, you know what I'm saying?
Now, Tucker, do you want to take this part or do you want me to?
You have been more ingrained in Xbox's ecosystem this entire year, as it has only been about 3 weeks since I have purchased an Xbox. I did get this really nice controller.
That is
for
actually
Christmas.
very nice.
This is a great color. Look at that. Ooh. But so I do own an Xbox, believe it or not, but I'm not as knowledgeable or as ingrained as you, because I am but a wee little babby starting my Xbox journey.
Sure. Yeah, so I mean, I'm not that much further in. It was really this generation that got me interested in Xbox, as people know.
A year further.
Yeah, I'm a year further, but in the grand scheme of Xbox's life,
yeah,
it's no fucking Nintendo or PlayStation to me. But Tucker, I will say, was my favorite console this year, my favorite ecosystem to be in, and so let's lay the pipe here with Mr. Phil Spencer.
That's what I was thinking of.
Yes,
lay the pipe.
Yes, and talk about kind of their major achievements. So of course, there were a couple big ones, of course, on the games front. Halo Infinite and Forza were really the two slam dunks of the year, of course. Then you also throw in your Microsoft Flight Simulators and the games that have come to fruition out of deals, such as Psychonauts 2. And then you throw in what I think was perhaps one of the most interesting components of Xbox's year.
Don't fucking forget Age of Empires 4.
You throw in the really interesting component of the indie games they helped bring to market, talking about the Gunk, talking about Lake, talking about the Ascent, talking about games in sort of the AA tier, things like the medium. And then you look at the big moves they're making on the services front, nailing down games like MLB The Show 21, a Sony Santa Monica game, nailing down things like Outriders and Back 4 Blood on Game Pass day one.
Yeah,
lots of moves being made there, in addition to, of course, the seismic moves they're making with their studio acquisitions, with their propagation of their services and everything. It's been quite the year for Mr. Xbox. Yes. I wouldn't say that there have been any major negative points against them this year.
Yeah,
it's been pretty consistently good. And Tucker, that's where I want to begin this conversation from. Xbox perhaps having a real resurgent year after what was pretty categorically a down 2020. But what do you think on this matter?
Yeah, so it's interesting. As someone who is obviously fresh-faced, brand new to the Xbox ecosystem, I have spent my last few weeks playing essentially nothing but Xbox. I was able to sort of ditch that a few days ago by dabbling in a few Switch games. Don't tell anyone. Don't tell Phil. He and I have been getting real damn close. But it's been really fascinating for me as someone who loves video game history, who loves getting into the nitty gritty of studios and publishing and the history of all this, to have a new ecosystem to learn about the history of Xbox's publishing studios, to learn about all their different franchises. And the Xbox Series S, which is what I have, has been a great opportunity for that. But what it has led me to realize is that I got in at the perfect moment for Xbox. And I think that extends to you as well, getting a Series console at launch. You now having a Series X, which I'm very jealous of. Yes. Is that this is not only a very good year for Microsoft and for Xbox in this year, it is not only did the best out of the big three this year. I think, as we'll come down to at the end, they won 2021 for us, but it is one of the only really strong years overall of Xbox in modern history since I started paying attention
Yes.
to Xbox. Of course, the dawn of Game Pass is a great thing. The dawn of their backwards compatibility program is a great thing. But this year, I think, is the first year that I know of, and looking back retrospectively, that they were firing on all cylinders. There are none of those negative points that you could point to in past years. I mean, I was taking a look at the games that they published and developed in past years, in 2020, 2019, and none of them have the breadth and high bar of quality that this year had. I think them having ostensibly 3 Game of the Year contenders is new for them in comparison to almost any year that they've done in modern history. And that combined with how strong Game Pass has been and comparatively how weak Sony's 2021 was, I think this is the year where they do start making that comeback, where they start becoming a very big hitter in the industry again. Obviously, they never weren't, but they're gaining back that ground. And I'm very happy to be in on the Xbox ecosystem now. And again, I think this is the perfect point because this is the year where they are filing on all cylinders, and all those acquisitions that they made during the Xbox One generation are finally starting to pay off.
Yes, and that's the important point. There's been a lot of delayed gratification within this ecosystem.
Yeah.
Of we're gonna implement Game Pass. We're going to start up xCloud. We're going to start buying studios. We're going to do all this stuff, but you're not going to see any of it. And this year we start to see all of it.
Exactly.
The Bethesda deal is in.
Mhm.
We know that games like Starfield and Elder Scrolls are Xbox console exclusives.
Yes.
We got that back catalog of Bethesda games dumped onto Game Pass.
Yeah.
We got
making Game Pass even more enticing.
We got incredibly strong showings at various E3 conferences for teams like Ninja Theory, ready to drop a Hellblade Senua's saga.
Yeah.
We're seeing these pieces in motion. We're seeing Game Pass blossom to get these big AAA games that are on Game Pass day one. We're seeing the xCloud stuff come to console. We're seeing it move to mobile. We're seeing hundreds of games being playable anywhere. We're being able to jump between platforms and switch your saves and play wherever. And Halo Infinite, first Halo game on PC day one.
Yeah.
2021 is where the talk is no longer talk, it's action.
Yes. Sure.
And the result of that action is an ecosystem that cares more about you as a player than any other ecosystem.
By a significant margin. Yes.
By a significant margin. When I upgraded to my Series X, I was super excited, but I was also concerned there's going to be a real hassle trying to move shit around. But
because when you got a Switch OLED,
as we'll talk about on that year in review, it was a fucking nightmare trying to transfer data over. But I plugged in that Series X, I linked it to the app on my phone. It transferred all of my data, all of my settings, everything. Because Xbox is now this amorphous ecosystem, and where every piece is talking to each other, and every service and every idea is actually tangible.
Yeah.
And there is nothing like it anywhere else.
Yeah, it's fascinating to see how they had to gain ground during the Xbox One generation, which was obviously very down for them. They got trounced by their competition six fucking ways from Sunday from before the console even launched. And they had to, over the course of that generation, start doing that talk that you're talking about. Okay, we're going to do backwards compatibility better than anyone. We're going to start Game Pass. We're going to think about xCloud and what's this? No, xCloud is where you can stream on fucking phones and stuff. We're going to start having our accessibility be a part of our ethos. We're going to start expanding more to also having things on PC, of course, Game Pass, all that stuff. This is now, with the launch of the Xbox Series consoles, this is now everything funneling into these. You see those philosophies being incorporated into the launch of the console and the design philosophy of the console, as opposed to the design philosophy and launch of the Xbox One, which was always on Connect, fucking can't play used games. You want to stream video? Not really, but too bad, bitch. Like all that kind of stuff has been reversed. And I think it feels very refreshing as someone who always kind of, in all honesty, looked down on Xbox and they're the ones that no one really cares about. They're just the ones that put everything into fucking shooters and stuff. It's fresh and exciting for me to come in on an Xbox that does obviously care from all the services point of view, but also has the exclusive games to back it up. And I think that's why I'm personally most satisfied with this year from them, as opposed to Sony, where we will have seen that discussion if it already went up before this. I was let down by their first party offerings. For me, first party games, exclusive games are the cornerstone of why I care about any particular console. And that they never had that. Xbox never really had that for as long as I've been cognizant of video games, media, journalism, and all that. This year, with Forza, Psychonauts, and Halo are the big ones for me, and Age of Empires and Microsoft Flight Simulator sort of existing in a bonus. That is 3 big games, 3 Game of the Year games, 3 industry-defining, generation-defining games that will set the foundation for the Xbox Series consoles going forward. And I think that's why I'm so happy with this year.
Yeah, I agree, because we get 2/3 of the Gears, Forza, Halo trifecta in 2021. And they're both excellent. Halo Infinite is the best Halo's been.
They're both the best that they've been in the whole modern generations. Yeah.
Forza Horizon 5 is my first Forza game, so I can't really comment on how it compares, but I can say that Halo's the best it's been since Halo 3, for sure. Mm-hmm. But we've got that, which is great. But that's the expected. But I think it's the unexpected that's becoming so excellent. Because what Microsoft has is not necessarily a team of first-party studios that they've built from the ground up into their studio culture to release games like what Naughty Dog can. Mm-hmm. But I think there's becoming, in my opinion, a very clear benefit to Microsoft's acquisition model, where they are buying teams, giving them resources, and fucking off.
Yeah, let them do their own thing. As long as you have the little scribbly Xbox Game Studios thing before your game launches, that's good by me.
Because the thing about it is, PlayStation makes a game. Mm-hmm. They make the third-person narrative cinematic action game.
Yeah.
And if your franchise wasn't a third-person cinematic narrative action game before The Last of Us came out, it sure as shit is now. And that's interesting because it means that PlayStation has a unique identity. Mm-hmm. But Xbox has all of these different identities because they can have Microsoft Flight Sim next to Psychonauts, next to Halo, next to The Ascent, next to The Medium, next to Lake, next to 12 Minutes, next to The Artful Escape. And all of these games are under the Xbox umbrella, and you're getting all of them on Game Pass. And you're getting a diversity of content across scales, across development locations, across genre, that you are not getting from either of the other 2 first parties. Because what Microsoft has, cynically, is they have money, and they have a fucking gallon of it. And that's resulting in not more resources towards Gears and Halo, but more games around Gears and Halo that make the ecosystem so much more interesting than anybody else's. They helped bring to Game Pass a game where you play as a fucking woman who's a postal worker. They had an entire push over the summer with indie game demos, just a ton of them.
Yeah.
Tunic, Lake, all of this stuff. Nobody is caring about indies the way that Xbox caring about indies, not even Nintendo.
Nintendo and Sony used to have that sort of partnership, but they've since gotten too big for their own fucking britches. And I think it'll be interesting to see how this sort of indie-focused, variety-focused Microsoft continues into 2022 and obviously beyond, because we have a lot of ideas of big games in development, focusing more back on their first-party studios. Yeah. We have Bethesda putting out their Starfield and their Elder Scrolls. We have the what's the fucking quadruple A? Is that the Coalition?
No, it's the team. No, the Coalition makes Gears.
Yeah,
I forget what the name of the quadruple A studio is, but they're the ones making Perfect Dark.
Yes, they're doing Perfect Dark. We've got things from all these studios. Is Rare's fucking game canceled, or no, what the fuck happened to that game?
Everwild still exists, but it's being brought back to a conceptual stage.
That's a really strange thing.
They Metroid Prime Forward it.
Yeah, they did. But what I'm saying is all this stuff is very exciting. But for the most part, I would say the only exception being Hellblade 2, we don't have a clear slate. We don't have a clear path going forward of what the momentum of these first-party studios putting out games is going to be. Now, That doesn't necessarily mean anything too terrible, considering they do have other smaller teams that are working on things. They are not opposed to having someone like the fucking the Grounded team, New Vegas, Obsidian, working on something like Grounded and putting that out. They're not opposed to having multiple projects going on at once. And of course, as you said, they're supplementing all of this with a surrounding variety of games, making sure that there are indies that are exclusive, publishing things like Tell Me Why last year or The Medium this year. Like, just because their studios aren't firing on all cylinders, because that's going to take a while for those big projects to come out, it doesn't mean there's nothing. As opposed to Sony, who we saw this year, the fact that they aren't making those collaborative decisions, they aren't pushing to have exclusive indies and stuff, it leaves their ecosystem feeling a little bit empty, because when they're not firing on all cylinders with their first party studios, they don't really have much else to lean on. Of course, most games release on PlayStation, but when you're talking about just what's exclusive to PlayStation, not much this year.
Yeah, when the Xbox Game Pass account tweets out twice a month a list of new games coming,
yeah,
and it's a mix of old games you've always wanted to play, classics, new indies, new Xbox Game Studios titles hitting, there is never the sort of lull where you've finished Ratchet and you're waiting for I think the next was Ghost of Tsushima Definitive Edition.
Oh, I see. Yeah,
it's like you never have that wait time.
Mm-hmm.
It is an ecosystem that is always moving and changing, and that is just not happening elsewhere.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to look back in 5 years and see if it was for the better or for the worse, because there's a lot of skeptics about Game Pass's like larger effects, the subscriptionization of the industry.
Yes.
But I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in college. I buy a lot of games for work, but I would prefer not to.
Mm-hmm.
I prefer to use, fucking buy shoes. I'm tired of walking around I'm like fucking goofy with my shoe flapping open all the time, because of Game Pass, I can buy new shoes.
Exactly. Yeah. Microsoft, your 2021 has allowed this poor little individual to wear functional shoes.
But no,
thanks, Phil.
I think that the ways that these services are intertwining and creating this ecosystem of constant content is the future. Mm-hmm. And it is so different. And that difference is why this year has been so good.
No, I definitely agree. I'm very happy to finally, as I said at the beginning, very happy to finally be a part of this ecosystem. And I picked a very good time to do it. I do think that I was skeptical about how I would use Game Pass in how it would be part of my gaming diet. I was skeptical and to some extent still am about how invested I am in Xbox Game Studios history and their franchise and that kind of stuff. But I'm learning, I'm exploring Xbox Game Pass, and how complete it is with its back catalog is a huge boon to me in learning about Xbox's history and their ecosystem and their franchises. And I'm excited to be a part of it going forward. The only caveat being, as I said earlier, and I think kind of what I want to end with, is the unfortunate side of we don't have a 2022 slate. The 4 big game momentum of this year is not clear for next year. We don't know if Hellblade 2 is coming out next year. That's a presumed thing. We have, I think, State of Decay 3 releasing early next year, but that's kind of the only thing we know for the first half of the year. They obviously could turn it around, could announce things, could have things releasing, in the later half of next year. But the fact that this momentum is not necessarily carrying full sail is a little bit disappointing to me, because we saw that also with the launch of the PS5 and how great that was in the games that came with. This is kind of recreating that just a tad in my mind.
Well, so we'll see, because I just did some Googling to confirm my own suspicions. We do actually know quite a number of games coming. The only one, maybe 2 of them are on the par of, let me just check. Is Avowed coming out in 2022? Avowed
doesn't even have a Wikipedia page.
Actually,
I'm on the Xbox Studios
okay, sure.
games list.
So,
and here's the thing. Only one of them has a confirmed 2022 release date, which is Crossfire X, which I believe is the campaign.
Well, there's more than that.
Okay.
we've got
Well,
cross.
then someone needs to update this fucking Wikipedia page.
So Crossfire X is first. That campaign is coming from Remedy, which is actually quite interesting.
Yeah.
I'm excited to give that a shot. We have Stalker 2 releasing April of
Oh,
next year.
Stalker. That's I think that's
Uh,
what I was thinking of, not State of Decay. Sorry.
Yeah,
My bad.
Stalker, which it doesn't really interest me, but I'm going to give a shot again because of Game Pass and because
Yes,
Stalker
exactly.
is quite a beloved game. We also have things like Replaced, which is that really interesting like cyberpunk beautiful 2D adventure game that we learned about at E3. We have
Okay,
of
don't
course
remember that.
Starfield coming. We have Tunic coming.
Starfield, yeah.
There are quite a number of games coming and quite a number that could possibly hit next year. So I don't think we're going to have a trouble on that front because part of why I think this ecosystem is quite good is because they can just drop games. You know, because it's so service focused and it's so digital oriented, it's not hard to slot in these titles. And so I think that, I mean, Starfield arguably is the biggest release of next year because Bethesda has not released a new exclusive or a new IP in 25 years.
Yeah.
Right. And Bethesda, that is a humongous game. And then you start to build around that as we're seeing with these smaller games. And I think we're going to have another interesting year. We do not have a Halo. We do not have a Forza. But ultimately, I think we're going to have another slate of compelling games to try.
Sure. Yeah. And it'll be interesting for me going forward. Again, as I said, my focus and how I almost end up judging a year period is what games did the first party studios exclusively put out on this platform.
Sure.
Now, that is only my mindset because I have been Sony and Nintendo focused for my entire life up to this point. Nintendo systems thrive exclusively on their first party games. And of course, they don't really stop for the most part of how many studios they have putting out games. Sony is very focused on pushing their first party games first and foremost. And even though they have their third party support, they don't integrate it to the extent that Xbox does. It'll be interesting for me now that I have Game Pass for a full will have had it for a full year, how my opinions on a year, how good a year can be, will be changed by that, because I believe they probably will. Being able to try a greater variety of games that are exclusive from big to small, even something like Stalker 2, which if I had seen the trailer at E3, which I didn't give a piss about, I'm going to give it a try because it's on Game Pass and because I'm interested in trying games from Xbox Game Studios. That'll bolster my year just a tad. And of course, as you said, they're not opposed to just dropping things because they have such a different kind of ecosystem. So the year could be very good for me in retrospect. I don't have the slate to look forward to say that it's going to be good categorically like we can with Nintendo's 2022, because we know their IP, we know their studios, we know what's releasing because they've announced a lot of stuff. Xbox doesn't quite have that yet, but I'm excited to be a part of the ecosystem, and looking forward, I'm very excited for this firing on all cylinders that I'm talking about to start happening consistently. We have all these big studios working on big games. They have Bethesda under their fucking hat now, so all their studios are also going to be firing on all cylinders as they all have been consistently for the last generation. That's all Xbox now. And as someone with an Xbox, it's now Xbox to me as well. Like, I would have played Bethesda games. I have played Bethesda games on PlayStation, so they're not Xbox in my mind, but now they are because their games are in Game Pass. So next year, my experience with video games as a whole will have changed pretty drastically once I've had a year to sit with Xbox and Game Pass.
Yeah, I agree. I've already shifted to, now that I have the Series X, I'm not buying anything on PlayStation unless it's exclusive. Yeah. I don't care. It's just not happening. This is even if I'm paying, even beyond the context of Game Pass, which Game Pass does dominate my Xbox, as I think you're very quickly coming to learn with yours. I'm gonna buy my third party games here. So if I were to try Elden Ring, which I don't necessarily think I am, but if I were, I'd buy it on Series X. Perhaps Lego Star Wars. That's really a question mark right now, but
that's really a question mark for the comments.
Again, please leave a comment. I'm at a fork in the road in my life. I need to decide there, but no, we'll see. I think there's something fun about Xbox of 2022 not having these big pillars, because they're all at our fingertips. Every one of these games is at our fingertips. Yeah, and very compelling.
Yeah.
So
Xbox, unlike Sony, you did good this year. You got me in, which is the best thing that you can do. I think that's how you can tell that Xbox definitely had a good year, is if they impacted me, if they got my positive, my thumbs up on it. That's all Phil Spencer's been asking for.
they got a second Xbox out of me. You know,
What are you doing with your Series S?
I think Martin's gonna buy it from me.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah,
Good for him.
I'm gonna
Any
charge
last
him
things to say?
$700 for it.
Oh, Christ.
I told him that it costs $2,000 at market. He said, I don't know about that. And I said, would I ever lie to you? And I winked.
Mm-hmm.
But no, Tucker, I think we're about done here. I have nothing else to say.
All right. Well, thank you very much for watching, and join
You're
us
welcome.
in 2022 as we, for the first